Hello everybody and welcome to the Essential Guide to Anno 1800. This is a beginner's guide, but should have some nice tips in there for regulars of the series. The goal of Anno 1800 is to grow your population and to build beautiful cities. To do this, you're going to need to supply your citizens with increasingly complex goods that you can find on various islands and link them together with trade. You're not alone in this task, however. There's usually 3 other AI companies looking to do the same thing. As you grow, your citizens pay more taxes, which allows you to do economic buyouts of competitor islands and protect your own from the same fate. If your economy isn't strong enough to do that, you can also resort to military intervention, declaring war, sieging and seizing the shares for yourself, or wiping out an island altogether. This guide will show you how to do all of that and provide some general tips along the way as well. If you want to jump to a specific topic, just check the description for timestamps. When starting a Sandbox game, you can either go with preset starting conditions or customize your own. Now for now, I'll assume that you've gone with a preset, either normal or advanced difficulty, both which I would recommend if it's your first time playing. Just for reference, if you do customize the settings, you can actually turn off all of the AI and all the NPCs if you like. Maybe if you just want to have a bit more of a relaxed experience building a city, or maybe you just want to learn some of the production chains before you kind of go against the AI. So with the standard settings, you'll find yourself set up on an island already with a harbour. You'll also have your flagship and enough material to colonize a second island. And once an island is colonized, nobody else can build on it, so you'll want to claim another island early on and find one that is suitable. And this is where we're going to first look at what makes an island suitable. Fertility and raw resources is what you're going to be looking out for. You'll notice on your starting island that you have the fertility for potatoes. You always start with this, as it's enough to satisfy your first tier of population completely. With potatoes, you can make schnapps, which will keep the farmers happy. More on that later. Now, chances are you won't have something that is needed for your next tier of population, which is bread, sausages, and beer. So what you'll be looking for on another island is the fertility for wheat, the fertility for hops, and the resources for clay. You might already have some of this on your starting island, but chances are you're missing one of them. So when settling your second island, make sure you settle an island that has something that your current one doesn't. That's a good rule in general. Every island you take should have something unique to it that you don't have elsewhere. To settle on an island, you just move your ship up to the coast and click the blueprint to see what's required. Settle it, and it's as easy as that. You don't have to worry about that island for a while. You can just leave it alone until you're ready to start building up on it, but it will prevent anyone else from claiming it or building on it themselves. Before you can start working a resource, you need the population to do so it's time to start building some houses. The first thing that is essential to your city is a marketplace. A marketplace is a sort of central hub of your small village. All markets need a road connection back to the harbour. Houses need a road connection to the market to begin to grow, as that's where citizens get their goods. A house that's within 35 tiles of a market will have their market demand fully met. So you should build a market with at least 35 tiles of space around it from all sides. So don't put it next to a coast or next to a cliff, as you'll just be wasting space. A handy tip when building anything is to use the blueprint mode. Toggling that on allows you to place things down and see their reach without committing to the cost of it. So when you're happy with where it is, you then just upgrade from a blueprint into a building. You can do this by clicking on it and then clicking the little arrow, or by using the upgrade tool, or by pressing U as a hotkey. So ideally you'll want to place your market and put a few houses around it. When these are all built, you'll notice when clicking a farmer house how strong that supply is. If you built inside those 35 tiles, you'll be at 100% supply to the market, and your farmers will start filling the houses. If you built a bit too far away, they'll only partially meet that demand and only partially grow. So there's a few important things here. All houses have needs and happiness. Needs are fulfilled by basic goods, and happiness is fulfilled by luxury goods. The more needs that are fulfilled, the higher the population will grow in that residence. The more happiness that's fulfilled, the more income you make off of the people in the residence. In order for a house to advance to the next level of population class, they need to have their basic needs met and have grown to a full population already in that residence. Only then can you advance to the next tier. For farmers at the beginning, they just need a market close by, they need fish and clothing. If you satisfy all of that, then your population will hit 10 out of 10 in the house, and they can upgrade to workers. Be careful with this, as it means you are removing 10 farmers and creating 10 workers. and also the residents will double in size, so it will grow to 20 workers when you meet all of their needs. This is going to put more of a strain on what you're already making, as more people consume more stuff, even within one residence. If you leave your people unhappy for too long, they may riot, and we'll cover riots, sickness, and fires a bit later. Now that we know how population works and what they require, we need to learn how to meet their needs, and we do that with production. As a basic example, houses cost timber to be built, so let's set up your first production chain so you can build more. Now I know this might come across as really simple, but the fundamental rules explained here will apply to every production chain in the game. When building any production chain, you want to factor in 3 things: the time it takes to make the item, the workforce needed to make it, and the load that's going to be placed on the warehouse. Just like houses connecting to a market, production buildings connect to a warehouse. Both markets and warehouses then connect back to the harbour, and it never really gets any more complex than that, really. Taking wood as an example, and going through our 3 rules, we can see that wood gets refined into timber. Wood takes 15 seconds to produce, and timber takes 15 seconds to refine. This means it's a 1-to-1 connection. For every lumberjack hut we should have a sawmill, if we want to just even out the chain. If we do want to store more raw wood for whatever reason, then we'd need more lumberjack huts than sawmills, so pretty easy. The next thing is workforce. We know that a lumberjack hut needs 5 farmers, and a sawmill needs 10. So to get 1 timber, we need 15 farmers to work the building chains. At any time, you can see your available workforce at the top of the screen, so you can predict if you're going to have enough to work it or not before you build your buildings. Blueprint mode again is your friend here. You can map the production chains out, then just click the button to have them upgrade when you're happy, and you have the population to do so. If you do end up overbuilding, you'll have a shortage of workers, and they'll spread out evenly between the buildings, reducing the efficiency of everything, increasing the time it takes to produce the items. The final rule was the load on the warehouse. As mentioned, all production buildings need to connect to a warehouse, and that warehouse needs to be pretty close by or they won't function. A warehouse contains all of your island's storage. It works like a magic chest. They all link together, and what goes in one can come out any of the others. So let's place it all down and have a look at what's happening. A lumberjack hut creates 1 wood every 15 seconds. Then a little cart will take that wood to the sawmill, where it'll take 15 seconds to produce 1 timber. Then a little cart will take that timber back to the warehouse to put it in your island storage. The loading and unloading process actually takes time here, and your warehouse has a certain number of loading bays. If you have too many production buildings bringing stuff to the one warehouse, it may get backed up with carts waiting to load and unload. To cut down on that travel time, having the sawmill next to the lumberjack hut means that the cart will take it right where it needs to go. It won't go to the warehouse first, so you're essentially saving on the time it takes to load and unload things and freeing up that slot. Ideally, you want to do this as much as possible. Avoid taking things to warehouses if you can take them straight to the refineries instead. You don't have to do this. You could have all of your woodcutters in one place and all of your sawmills in another place, but that does create a dependency on warehouses to load and unload and the cost of maintaining the warehouses themselves. You can cut down on all of that by trying to bring things directly to where they need to go. This can then be repeated for most chains at Tier 1. Potato farms to schnapps is 1-to-1 production time, so they can easily fit next to each other. Wool to clothes is 1-to-1, so they can go next to each other as well. And when you start to get something like bricks, you can see that a clay mine to a brick factory is 2-to-1 production time, which means you can have 1 clay mine and 2 brick factories, and then they'll even out. So just remember to check those production times, work them into each other, check that you have the workforce, and check that you have enough room for a warehouse that's not going to be overloaded, and you'll always be good to go. So how do you manage your island inventory? How do you know when you're consuming too much of something before you run out? Well, checking your harbor or any warehouse will show your inventory for that entire island. The most important category here that you can filter by is consumer goods. That's the stuff that's going to be consumed by your population. If any of these items have a red arrow, it means that it's decreasing over time. So you know that you need to increase their supply or else you're going to run out. It's important to note that this shows both the basic needs and the luxury needs, so anything consumed by people. If you run out of a basic need, your population will actually shrink, and if you run out of a luxury need, their happiness will go down. So you can typically tell if this is happening when your income starts fluctuating. It's usually because you're running out of something, and every time you make a new batch, you temporarily make people happy again and the money goes up. then you run out and the money goes back down. If you're experiencing a shortfall or an excess of goods, you can also try to buy and sell the items. By clicking the item, you can set the limit of the amount that you're open to purchasing or selling. Then NPC fleets will come by to trade and buy things, but it's not easy to predict when they'll arrive or how much they're going to actually buy. They don't fill the amount that you always want to sell. They might just buy a little bit here, sell a little bit there. Trade rights with the AI will also allow them to buy and sell things there, and you can then visit their ports to buy and sell things too. Now you can also lower the efficiency of the resource, which means you'll be producing less, but in turn raising the happiness of the workers there. It's quite micromanaging to do this, but it is instant, so if you need something quickly it can help, or if you do just want to make your people a little happier it can help as well. With regards to the NPCs, that's the ones that are on these like special islands, they don't compete with you, and they always have a certain desire for goods that you can fulfill. Soap, for instance, is bought in infinite quantities for nearly $200 per good, so you could set up a reliable trade route to that NPC to get an external, regular source of income. They also will buy any resource or item at regular prices, so you can always sell excess stuff infinitely to them. So overproduction really isn't the worst thing if you're always selling it off. You'll also want to get extra storage. That's going to allow you for a bigger safety net should you start running out of something. It gives you the time to kind of figure it out before you run out completely. And it'll also allow you to send bigger shipments in trade. There's two types of trade route. One is a trade route that is set up completely by you. This type of trade route is very customizable and very powerful. You can determine what ship takes the route, where it stops off, add multiple stops, add multiple ships, choose what to load and unload, set rules to wait until the ship is full or not, toss excess goods overboard or not, and adjust the route by moving points. You can send these routes to the AI, to the NPCs, or just keep it within your own islands. Island inventories are separate, so you'll need to make use of trade routes to deliver goods to each other in order to grow each island. The next one is a charter route. A charter route is run by the AI. You pay a flat upkeep rate and some influence to let the AI take a small ship and move resources from one island to another. They make this ship on their own, it comes in from off the map, you don't have to build it yourself. This ship can still be attacked and destroyed by enemies, so it's really only useful if you just don't have any spare ships of your own to take the route yourself. Its inventory size is also a little bit smaller than a regular schooner trade ship. It can only carry 80, whereas you can normally carry 100. Trade routes can be attacked by pirates or hostile AI, so it's always good to patrol the routes or just straight up escort the trade ships with military vessels. We'll get to combat and formations just a little bit later. Throughout your playtime, you'll come across quests from your own citizens, as well as from the NPCs and the AI, and completing these quests can often net you item rewards and benefits. Now these items typically serve as buffs and have a range of rarities associated with them. There's actually a huge amount of these items in the game, and they can be placed in a few key buildings or on ships. When you earn an item on a ship, you can then take it to your harbour and transfer it over, and then you can use it in buildings on that island. The most notable building that they can be placed in is probably a trade union. These buildings are unlocked at tier 2 and they take up a 4x4 area. Placing items inside of these buildings provide buffs to everything within the building's radius. They can increase efficiency, reduce costs, and even add more fields or slots to a particular building. Another interesting one is the town hall. It's just like the trade unions but for people instead of production. The town hall building is good for providing general buffs to happiness and population classes and squeezing more money out of your population in general. Some of the items and character items can be placed on a ship for expeditions. Now expeditions will begin when you reach tier 3. You need to prepare a ship with various items and resources and then send it off, then go through a series of dilemmas to receive a reward, or have it fail. The first expedition will found the New World, but later expeditions give a range of items and benefits if successful. The items and goods will have a category that it belongs to, like soap for medicine. Now if during the expedition people fall sick, you might be asked to use soap to increase your chances of curing the disease. It's a minor little kind of side game of its own, but it can really net you great rewards. The New World behaves just like the Old World in terms of gameplay, but it's essentially a different biome with two of its own unique population classes. Again, when exploring the islands here, be careful to check the fertility and make sure you start with bananas. If bananas are on the island, then you can much more easily grow your colony quickly. Eventually, you'll need to use trade routes to send stuff to and from the Old World on long voyages. you'll be relying on the unique biomes of both to provide what the other cannot. Ships can take a long time to move between these regions, so using the Clipper class ship is pretty good as it has a cargo hold of 200, and then you should probably get multiple of them going in rotation until you can start getting cargo ships later on. Something I've mentioned a few times now is influence. Influence is a sort of static resource that you can invest into certain things. The amount you have is dependent on your population size. So as you grow and increase your profile level, you get more influence to use. Now you don't really spend it though, you just invest it, as you can always get it back if you remove the thing you used it for. An example is trade unions. Those trade union buildings cost 20 influence to build, as well as the other materials obviously that goes along with the building. That 20 influence goes into the optimization category. With enough investment into that category, so by buying or building a lot of trade unions, you'll hit a milestone buff that reduces the cost of maintenance for everything. By flipping the cards of the influence section, you can see what is needed to invest to get the benefits. Want to increase your attack speed on ships? Then build a lot of military ships and defenses and you'll get it. Want an extra boost of population? Then invest in island occupation and shares. If you decide that you don't want these things anymore, just remove or sell all of your military ships, or remove your trade union buildings, or whatever you've already invested in. Just remove them and you get the influence back to invest back into other areas. Remember, it's tied to your population, so ultimately, if you find yourself wanting to make more and more military ships or more trade unions, you just need a bigger population. Electricity production kicks in at tier 4, and it's a bit different than other things, so I thought I should explain it. Essentially, you need to mine oil wells with an oil refinery. This building doesn't use roads to connect to a warehouse, that's kind of what makes it different. Instead, it uses railways to connect to an oil harbour. Now, oil is taken back and stored at the harbour for later use. Power plants use oil to make electricity, but they need a rail connection to the harbour. The distance doesn't really matter for this, but the shorter the better for time. Once oil gets delivered, then engineers will work and produce electricity. Now, electricity is a proximity building, or the power plant I should say. So everything in its proximity will receive it. Factories and production buildings receive double the efficiency bonus, and this stacks with any existing buffs. So you can really enhance and double or triple production with the right kind of items, trade unions, things like that. Once you have 1,750 engineers in total, they'll start requiring electricity to grow further within their homes, so you'll need to place power plants relatively close to their houses, and I think it has a reach of about 30 tiles or so keeping it central is best. When it comes to building the train lines, trains can cross roads, but they cannot double up on the same line if they're traveling opposite directions, obviously. But factories and oil refineries both have an entrance and exit, so you could place railway lines going straight through them to create a closed loop without the need for two separate lines. There are several types of disaster that can occur. Now, they're not strictly speaking called disasters in the game. I don't know what they're called. I've just called them disasters, but it's not a great name, but you'll get the idea anyway. Now, these can occur randomly, but you can do several things to minimize the risk of a disaster happening. The first one is a fire. Fire has increased chance to occur within high building density, and you can minimize the risk with a fire station. Now, as long as the fire station is within range, the fire brigade will make its way to the fire automatically to put it out. If your city's population is happy, and you're keeping your eye on the ball, you can mobilize additional firefighters to help put the fire out quicker by clicking on the station and clicking mobilize. If the fire burns for long enough before it gets put out, it could leave ruins in its wake, so you'll have to rebuild what was there. The next one is a riot. This occurs when the population is unhappy for a long time. Now, a riot, much like a fire, can be minimized by having a police station in range. If the station is in range, the police will calm the riot down by going door to door and house to house. If it's bad enough, it may spread faster than your police can actually calm it down, so that can lead to fires and burned buildings. Now, a handy tip for getting happier people quickly is also to lower those work conditions for certain resources which we mentioned before. The last outbreak is disease. Again, like the others, you need a hospital nearby for this one, and if your city is happy, you can provide additional doctors to help the sick. But with sickness, ships can actually take on the disease and spread it to other islands, so you'll need to stop your trade routes until you can contain the sickness, or at least just stop the boats that you know are already infected. The last thing to touch on is buying competitor shares. Every colonized island has 5 shares. You can buy shares in someone else's island for a price that's dependent on the value of the island, and the value of the island is dependent on the population that's there. You can then earn regular income based on that value also. If they can afford it, they can instantly buy back their share should they wish. Each time you buy a share, it's going to upset the competitor AI, and they may declare war on you if they've got bad relations with you. They can also buy shares in your islands at any time, and just like them, you can buy it back if you want. Now if you don't, then you lose a portion of your income from your island to the share. There's a 10-minute cooldown on buying shares on an island, so hostile takeovers have to be done over the course of an hour at minimum. The goal is to economically weaken someone and buy their island out before they can buy it back. Or you could just be content owning a large portion of their shares and letting them do their thing. After all, it will earn you money over time. Now if you do fully buy out an island, their entire island will be wiped clean and become yours. You'll have all the shares, but you're not going to be making anything from it anymore as there's nothing on the island. If you're strapped for cash, you can always sell back the share to the owner, but if they can't pay for it, it'll go to the crown, who will hold it until someone else can buy it. And that's pretty much the peaceful way of doing it. Now when it comes to war, essentially it's all done with your navy and defenses. When you attack someone's harbour, you'll begin an island siege. If you defeat their defenses and their harbour, then the island morale will drop and the island will surrender to you. You can then either take all of the shares in the island immediately, keeping them and keeping the island intact, or you can just take the island completely, which will wipe it completely clean. That's really all there is to war. I mean, ships do have a wind direction and they will shoot best if they're firing a clear broadside angle. And they'll fire out of both kind of sides if they can get in between targets. So there can be a little bit of microwing you can do to help your combat out. The AI will tend to target the weakest ship and keep firing on it until it's destroyed. So once you notice one of your ships may be taking damage, you'll kind of want to pull it back to get it back to a repair crane to keep it going. Now bear in mind, damaged ships travel slower, so as you start taking hits, it's going to be harder to get away. So even your fast trade ships running along routes will eventually slow down if they're constantly harassed and raided. It's a good move to build repair cranes next to harbors and piers, so that when ships dock to transfer goods, they automatically will just be healing over time. A handy tip as well with ships is to set their stances. You can make aggressive ships seek out pirates, or you can have ships that are locked to defend harbors or trade routes. Setting patrol routes and stances is a nice way to keep enemies away from your trade lines. And that's it for my guide to Anno 1800. I'm absolutely loving this game right now and I highly recommend picking it up. If you have any tips that you think will help people out, drop them in the comments and I'll heart them so that they reach the top for everyone else. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.